I really wanted to do a video clip on an extremely important subject, and first off, I'm going to offend a lot of people, and some of my video clips do. I don't make very many. They're really just for a few friends, my opinion, kids, but I have this huge issue with pornography, to the point that I'm psychotic over this issue and how it's just destroying so many marriages and relationships on a continuous base. And so, first off, why I'm against pornography is it creates pedophilia. You have a huge chance if you're looking at any kind of pornography and you do it to get off or however you want to do it, and you use the internet to look at these sex professionals. Get on the images and just type in porn. You're going to come across children, faces of children, 11, 10-year-old, maybe 12-year-old bodies, intermingled and mixed in with the professional sex workers. And so I feel that not only am I correct about how pornography is contributing to pedophilia, it is also a prime example of how our government needs to get involved immediately in the porn media, the public porn media. Is because when I was looking at porn, I decided, I'm going to look at this really in detail, do a real good study on it. And what happens is that people will jump into porn. That's, I guess, fine, to a degree, if it's an accredited porn company where all the women are checked, they're at the right age, whatever. But what I started seeing was a lot of teenager sex and intermingled with teens this, teens that, and then you'll start seeing baby pictures. And what I mean by baby pictures are little bitty girls. Some boys, but mostly it's little bitty girls. And I don't know if our FBI agents who are looking into the sex trafficking choose not to put a stop on the sex media so that they can find these pedophilias by viewing possible children and tracking them down. To me, if you get rid of pornography off the internet, and if someone wants to have their own porn on their own blog, okay, then it's easier for investigators to look at personal blogs to see. And completely remove pornography off the internet for every American. I wish it was everywhere in the world. But, hopefully we can get some real Americans to kind of put this view into perspective. Absolutely every fundamental religious organization holds, large ones will hold group therapy sessions because someone was addicted in their congregation to porn and it's destroying their family. And so one thing I feel like is a destroyer of families is how far they get into their curiosity with porn. And you can go as far as you want, to animals having sex with people, to animated cartoon characters of monsters raping someone till they die. So much bondage going on, and just horrible abuse against women. And people are allowing this kind of entertainment easily accessible on the internet. Now, internet's so different that it takes over our kids' culture too. My 11-year-old could be curious about porn, put porn in there, go to images on Google, and there's no stopping it. You can protect your computer and put private on it, and that still doesn't avoid all the porn you're going to see. And so there's no protecting your children online, and all of our kids have this new phone and public media sites, and they're used to, they could be better tech savvy than you if you're my age. But the thing is, I'm pretty much 100% convinced that pornography leads to pedophilia, mostly due off of Dr. Phil's show where this man was talking about how he got on porn, and he would just go further and further and further into it until he confessed that he was looking at children, and that he used to never do that, but that porn and that travel of curiosity led to that, and then pretty soon he was a mental pedophile. And he said never did it physically, but it ended up shocking him to the point that, after he realized it, he wanted to talk about how pornography led to this type of thinking. Also, we're coming up against, just look on the news, murders happening, especially in Japan. This little 16-year-old girl got brutally raped by 3 boys, murdered, and had a handsaw kicked into her vagina, and it punctured her lung, and she was still alive when officers had found her mutilated body, and she died later in the hospital. But what we're coming across is kids trying to put a reality into some of their sex addictions that they see online, and they'll go off and they will literally do it. We've had 2 girls that killed another classmate girl because they literally believed in this fictitious story man, and a child got killed. And so we have issues with the children wanting to reenact what they see. And this is what we have factually already proven. It's a 100% fact that children will reenact what they see that isn't real. Adults do it too. And so we have adults that are highly addicted to now pornography. And if you think sex slaves are not instigating the overrated pornography that we got going on, think again. We have a lot of those pictures that you see on the images to porn sites. You'll see literal sex slaves. Their heads are covered. You can't identify either person, and you can tell that they are sex slaves intermingled with all these different types of porn. And so I would love it if people in the society not just wear "I'm against porn" t-shirts, but make a t-shirt that says "Get porn off our public media," and porn creates pedophiles. And so when you have so many pedophiles, what they're going to end up starting to do, because now the majority of these of our culture has a large amount of pedophiles, and it is due to porn. Flat out. I understand that people have been pedophiles and they'll come up here and there, and that's throughout history. We got pedophiles. I get it. But I think that we have a larger, huge amount more of pedophiles due to pornography. Now, if pornography was decent and it was just adults having sex on accredited sites, and people know these sites where they know that their computers aren't going to get a virus or something, and they're literally accredited and investigated, and those, okay, fine, but they have zero right to just blurge their films just anywhere. You have to go to their accredited site. It's just not open for everyone. And so I am thinking that a lot of people think this is a breach of freedom if people jump in on our internet. But it's a breach of my freedom to sit there and get on the internet and just see all this, promotions or, ads to investigate these certain pornography channels and to react and play pretend with it. And if you can't play pretend, then you got something wrong with your sexuality. This is extreme. And so I'm getting sick of people who are into porn, picking on the people who are not into porn and saying that they got a problem with their sexuality. People that are into porn have a problem with their sexuality. They don't have a real one. And so, and if they did have a real one, it's probably revolved around what they do and what they see and what they want to play pretend with porn. And so this clip is really about how I want the government to get involved in our so-called free media on internet and put some internet regulations on so that this so-called freedom is monitored, because people who are watching porn and getting involved in porn are actually promoting sex slavery, and have a huge, well, absolutely 100% of all these people looking at porn will come across child pornography if they are real porn addicts. And so, yeah, our government needs to get involved in this media and put some regulations in there, because they're contributing to sex slavery, kidnap. And one thing I wanted to mention is that we have 800,000 children that go missing each year. Some of them are found, they go back, some of them are never found. And it turns out that 115 are abductions from strangers. And I wanted to mention this one story because it's really difficult for me to explain, but it's true. When I was a little girl, my kid sister and I were at county fair, and two men were on each side of us, but we were watching a friend and her kid on a ride. And we were in the middle, and there's a man here and a man here, and they were like my age, in their 30s, almost 40s, and my kid sister and I were like 7 and 8. And one man talked to the other man, and us kids were in between them, and he said, "After this, get her," and he pointed down to my kid sister. And the other man didn't know which kid he wanted, and he asked, "Which one?" He said, "Her." And I was looking up at them, and I seen what was going on, while my kid sister was looking at the right. And I jerked on my kid sister's arm, and I said, "Elena, we gotta go." And she's like, "No, we gotta wait for, whoever's on the right." And I said, "No, trust me, we gotta go." And I grabbed her, and we ran off. And the person that was on the ride was actually supposed to be watching us, and she was. She stopped the ride when she seen us two kids leaving. And she like grabbed me. She was like grabbing me when I ran off. She said, "Why are you leaving?" And I said, these men were going to get my sister. They're going to get Elena. And so I actually went through this experience of possible abduction. I'm not even saying that right. But really, I believe would have been my sister, or both of us. And it's absolutely true. We have issue with sex addictions that are brutal, cruel, and absolutely barbaric. And when it comes down to some of the psychological things going on, is that the pain, I learned this from the doctors on the show, first off, is that pain and sexual pleasure is in the same area of the brain. It works in the same area. So I'm not a doctor, so it's hard for me to explain. And so we have orgasmic deliveries. Having a baby is very painful, but some hippies in the 60s say, hey, there's a new way to have a baby. They didn't invent it, it was always around, but women are having orgasms while they have a baby. I'm really jealous of them. A lot of women are, because we didn't know about this. But what I'm trying to say is that I feel like when bondage and all this heavy barbaric sex comes into play, and girls are all about role playing and that they were brought up to think that sex was bad or horrible, and then they were interacting in it. And I also believe a majority of them were molested and abused severely. And so in order to make the bad good, they have to, make a reason or excuse for it, that it's normal. The fact is if you're seeing this type of sex, it's not normal, and you need to go get therapy and help and discover why you're mixing the pain in with the pleasure and where it came from. And to stop it. If you're a porn star and you want to do it, try not to do that porn, because it actually instigates dysfunctional sex. And this shit isn't as rampant as it is now in history that I know of. You always had horrible shit happen, but in the last 200 years, I just didn't hear in history all these pedophiles. I have heard in my life history and my mom's and, some parents behind me, that yeah, it happens, but it just seems so rampant in the last 40 years of these pedophiles popping up left and right and them talking about pornography. And so, put two and two together: sex slavery, sex abuse, child pedophilia. Stop watching porn and demand that the government gets involved immediately to put some regulations on this. I also want to say that I am actually for legalizing prostitution. I think that it should be a legal thing. But they should have appropriate places to go for that type of media instead of introducing it to everyone and saying this is normal. And if you don't think it's normal, there's something wrong with you. It's not normal. There's something wrong with them. But I also want to, tell these sex workers that, I'm not saying you're bad. I'm saying, you guys are making some bad decisions. And it's affecting a lot of people. And if you want to be a professional, then stick with being a real professional. Don't instigate children in bondage and abuse. Just be a good worker. And be professional like that. And if you do come across a creepy man that wants to do a bad trick, maybe think twice about that and just say, I'm all about tricks, I'm all about playing, but not like that. And if we got some more sex workers that had that concept, maybe there would be some improvement also. And I've never been a prostitute, but I have met prostitutes, and they're many, many wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. And I just personally feel that the pornography is extremely out of hand, and it needs to get organized, and the government has to get involved and put better regulations and accredited sites. And if people want to put porn on their personal blogs, FBI agents would be easier able to find these pedophiles. And if porn had a regulation, it wouldn't just be all over the internet where you see some 10-year-olds getting fucked along with a sex professional intermingled with these images. And so I am bitching, but I also feel like a lot of people would agree with me. I'm really curious on how many people would agree with this. But it's pretty much like, yeah, I'm anti-porn. It does create pedophiles. It creates barbaric sexual acts. And no one's really jumping in on the issue. And it's being thrown out in the public as a normal practice, I guess, entertainment. And it's not. And they need to normalize it with accredited sites that are careful. This is just ridiculous. And I had a friend. She was married for like 15 years, something like that. And her boyfriend or husband was wonderful for 10 years, but then he started getting on the internet, and he ended up with this horrible sex addiction, and then he started acting it out, and 3 kids in destroyed their relationship. They bringing people, STDs, giving it to your wives, These men want their wives, and they want their whores and sluts too. And there's nothing wrong with being a whore and a slut, but have some class, dignity, and some virtues about it if you're going to be. And that makes you an awesome whore and a slut. And you can own it. I'm a whore and a slut with virtues and morals. I want to see more of those type of girls. And do something about this dysfunctional sex. And just be better than that. And promote the government to get involved in our public media, because sex slavery has a lot to do with how successful porn is.